I was wrong about Tesla. There, I said it, I was wrong. Tesla announced their Q2 earnings this week, and Tesla's strategy of cutting prices in order to increase demand is not only working extraordinarily well, but it's also forcing some other automakers to do the same. So let's dive into it. Now, I want to preface this video by saying a few things. Number one is I am not a huge fan of Tesla. I don't really love the product, and truthfully, I'm not a big fan of Elon Musk himself. So this video is absolutely not being made behind the lens of rose-colored glasses. In fact, it is quite the opposite. So Tesla released their earnings this week, and I feel as though there are a few important topics that we should discuss in context of these earnings. Number one is I feel as though earnings were quite good, and I feel as though they prove that I was probably wrong about Tesla as a brand. Now, we'll discuss that a little bit later on in this video. What I first want to talk about is the actual earnings themselves, and I want to talk about why some analysts are actually disappointed with the earnings results. So Tesla's total automotive revenue came out to $21.27 billion, which is a 46% increase year over year. They also reported revenue from different segments, including energy generation and storage revenue and services and other revenue. But we're not going to be focusing on these two in this video. Total revenue for the entire company, including these different segments, came out to $24.927 billion, which was also a 47% increase year over year. Total gross profit, though, is wherever things start to get interesting. Now, total gross profit came out to $4.53 billion, which is a 7% increase year over year. Now, to give this some context, we have to compare this quarter to Q4 of 2022, which was about 6 months ago. You can see that in Q4 of 2022, Tesla reported $21.307 billion, which is slightly above but still very comparable to what they reported this quarter. But if we look at total gross profit, you can see which in Q4 of 2022 reported to be $5.77 billion, and in Q2 of this year, so this quarter that just ended, was at $4.53 billion, that's actually a decrease between these two quarters. So even though revenue was pretty similar between these two quarters, profit was down quite a bit from Q4 of 2022 to Q2 of 2023. And this is further depicted through the gross margin, which was 23.8% in Q4 and is 18.2% last quarter. This gross margin has been steadily going down since Q3 of 2022. You can see in Q4 is 23.8, in Q1 it was 19.3, and today it's 18.2. With that, operating expenses have also gone up. You can see in Q4, operating expenses was at $1.87 billion. Operating expenses actually went down in Q1 at $1.84 billion. But they have gone up substantially this quarter at $2.134 billion, which is a 21% increase year over year. Along with this, operating margin has also declined. It was at 16% in Q4 of 2022, 11.4% in Q1, and currently sits below 10% at 9.6% year over year. So Tesla revenue for this quarter went up, which is absolutely attributed to the fact that Tesla not only produced a record number of cars, but they also delivered a massive number of cars as well. But on the other hand, their profit margin and profit went down because of the fact that Tesla is lowering their prices. Now, you can see here that vehicle production is absolutely rocking it with Tesla, and I have to admit that this is absolutely attributed to the price cuts that Tesla has been experiencing over the last 6 months. You can see that in Q4, which is typically a very hot time for car buyers because of the holiday season, Tesla delivered 439,701 vehicles. In Q1, it was 440,808 vehicles, but in Q2, it was 479,700 vehicles, which is an 86% increase year over year. One thing that I do want to point out that I think is incredibly interesting is the difference in vehicle production for the Model S and the Model X model versus the Model Y and the Model 3. You can see here that Tesla only produced 19,489 S and X vehicles last quarter, but they produced 460,211 Model 3s and Model Ys. So these are the figures, but here are what these figures mean. Now, first I want to talk about what the automotive industry and analysts are saying, and then I want to talk about my personal opinion, which is obviously much less important, but I still think it's important to talk about here because I've been such a critic of Tesla in the past. Now, analysts actually were a bit disappointed with these earnings results. In fact, Tesla as a stock was down once these earnings were released. This is because of the fact that operating margin for Tesla has continued to go down. Now, this is obviously due to a few different reasons, including R&D, which I mentioned a little bit ago, research and development, but it's also due to the fact that Tesla has been cutting their prices left and right. And though they haven't cut prices in the last 30 to 60 days, they were consistently doing it throughout Q1, and as a result, their operating margin has, of course, decreased. Analysts are absolutely a bit nervous about what this means for Tesla long term, and they would like to see this profitability and profit margin improve sooner than later, which obviously doesn't seem to be the case. At least not this quarter, at least. Now, in my opinion, I always get a bit frustrated whenever analysts are disappointing with earnings that actually beat expectations, and this was the case with Tesla. The expected revenue for Tesla was $24.47 billion, but Tesla performed $24.93 billion. And the expected earnings were 82 cents per share, when in reality it was 91 cents per share. So by all metrics, Tesla actually exceeded expectations, and yet the stock was still down. And according to a CNBC article, when asked about whether investors can expect to see Tesla automotive gross margin stabilizing or rising after price cuts and factory improvements in the near future, Musk said the short-term variance in gross margin and profitability really are minor relative to the long-term picture. Autonomy will make all of these numbers look silly. Now, to me, I'm not super satisfied with this answer because of the fact that it's not really giving an answer at all. And I personally am a bit skeptical about the autonomy that Elon Musk is talking about, because if we look at Elon Musk historically over the years, he has a bit of a tendency to overpromise and underdeliver.
Autonomous cars will definitely be a reality. Tesla car next year will probably be 90% capable of autopilot. Like, so 90% of your miles could be on auto. You know, for sure highway travel. We're probably only a month away from having autonomous driving, at least for highways and for relatively simple roads. Like a Model S and Model X at this point can drive autonomously with greater safety than a person. Right now. And next year, self-driving will encompass essentially all modes of driving and be at least 100 to 200% safer than a person by the end of next year. We're talking maybe 18 months from now. I feel very confident predicting autonomous robotaxis for Tesla next year. I'm extremely confident of achieving full autonomy and releasing it to the Tesla customer base next year. When do you think Tesla will solve level 4 FSD? I mean, it's looking quite likely that it will be next year.
Elon has said on a number of occasions that robotaxis are going to come, and yet they still haven't. He promised that the Model 3 would be much cheaper than what it is. The Cybertruck was supposed to have come out years ago, and yet it seems as though production has just now started. The point is that Elon Musk has a bit of a history of making these types of promises. Not just once, but over and over and over again. So to say that profit margin today doesn't really matter because autonomy will make it look silly tomorrow, it's just not a great answer, especially from an investor standpoint. And let's just say I'm not going to be holding my breath for autonomy anytime soon. But that's not to say that I don't think that these earnings are quite good, and I think that the stress of profit margin is a bit overblown as well. Because the reality is, when it comes to electric vehicles, Tesla's crushing it, and this is where I was completely wrong. Earlier this year, whenever Tesla started cutting their prices, I was definitely one of the skeptics out there, saying that I thought it could really mean one of two things. Either option A, Tesla had their production down so well that they had enough margin that they could risk losing some in order to gain more market share. Or option 2, Tesla was really struggling and they were desperate to stir up demand, so cutting prices was the only way. And I'm going to be honest, 6 months ago, whenever I made this initial statement, I really thought it was option 2. But it seems as though, at least in my opinion, that it is in fact option 1. Tesla just has that good of production and they had such a high profit margin that they're willing to risk some of that for market share. In fact, we can look at this here in the presentation provided by Tesla. The operating margin for Tesla is extraordinarily good, especially when compared to the automotive industry as a whole. The automotive industry as a whole right here is this gray line, while Tesla is the red one. You can see that though Tesla's profit margin has gone down, it's still significantly higher than competitors. Obviously, these price cuts are working because Tesla is delivering and producing a record number of cars. The Model Y has consistently been one of the best-selling SUVs out there, not just for electric cars, but for cars in general. And obviously, other automakers are deeming that this is also effective because just this week, Ford announced that they were also going to be cutting prices on their Ford F-150 Lightning, with some price cuts for the Lightning being as much as $10,000, which is huge. Now, the point is that though I'm definitely a Tesla and Elon Musk skeptic, and I think they definitely do have a habit of overpromising and under-delivering, I think it cannot be denied that what Tesla is doing here with price cuts is absolutely working. Tesla's been ramping up their production, they've been selling cars like crazy, and they're just knocking it out of the park whenever it comes to comparable EVs. And even though I personally am not interested in buying a Tesla, I think at the current price point, the Model 3 and the Model Y are excellent deals, at least when it comes to EVs. Not to mention the fact that the Cybertruck should be hitting roads very soon, which is something that I'm looking forward to seeing. But there you guys have it, Tesla Q2 earnings. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.